Yeah, no, this is the player of the season, as voted by our YouTube members and Substack subscribers. And this it's we have three categories, as we did last year: player of the season, young player of the season, and manager of the season. And Stefan, let's start with the player of the season, the top category. What did members say here?
So we had quite a lot of interesting shouts.
Hmm.
We had Jonathan Burkhart, we had Patrick Schick, Sergio Garassi. In second place was actually Omar Marmoush, which is a very interesting shout and maybe something that we would have forgot to mention. So that's great that we obviously have our users and who know a lot more about football than we do, so at least have longer memories than we do, because I always forget that Marmoush was in the Bundesliga this season. But way out and ahead, Manu, almost unanimously, has been Michael Olise. And I just want to give everyone who listens to the show a pat on the back. Give yourself a pat on
Hmm.
the back if you're listening, because I've seen a few Bundesliga player of the year, player of the season votes. Some from the official accounts, some from other websites, and they've all kind of unanimously gone with Harry Kane, which I get is just like a kind of these things just turn into a kind of publicity stunt. You know, it's a public vote. It turns into a popularity contest. And Harry Kane is the poster boy of the Bundesliga right now, so he obviously wins the international thing and everything. But I'm actually really proud of our users for not picking Harry Kane. I don't think we had a single vote for Harry Kane, interestingly enough.
That's
So,
yeah.
so that's interesting. I'll read out some comments we had from people because we did ask our users to say, I keep calling them users, our subscribers and our members, why they picked from. So, just a few handful. Jake Dickinson says, Odyssey took the league by storm, spearheaded the attack through goals, chance creation, assists. Fair play to Bayern for getting him for what looks like a bargain. Should be interesting how he improves next year under company. We also had who else was in there? Reasoning for oh, 1 second. I thought I had more Odyssey stuff there. I think most people have just said it's pretty obvious, but there's one interesting one here actually from Edge, one of our YouTube members, who said Odyssey is the first winger since the robbery era who constantly
Mm.
played on a high level and makes a difference in every single match he plays. He missed one game for Bayern, which was the DFB Pokal against Mainz, but played every other match. I don't know the last time Sané or Gnabry played that many matches in a season. I think that's a really good summary of it, Manu.
Mm.
And I
Yep.
think we're probably both agreed that it probably is Michael Olise for this vote, isn't it?
Yeah, that's easy. I did my newsletter last week on Michael Olise, and speaking to Max Eber, Joshua Kimmich, Alexander Pavlovic post game Hoffenheim. Olise is a pretty shy guy. He doesn't do mixed zone very well. He attempts interviews in the mixed zone, and it's very short-lived, so there's not much from him there. But the conversations I had with players, and players know, they know what when someone is for real and when someone is not, was unanimous. They all said Michael Olise as well. Um, and what really struck me, there's the goals and assists, and we all see that that's obvious. But everyone said the hard work that he puts in, first at the training pitch, last to leave, works extra works extra with weights before and after training as well, puts in the hard work, and that's been really noticed among the Bayern players. And yeah, and the other thing I think is that how well he integrated there too. And we've seen players come in and initially take the league by storm like he did. Diego Costa comes from mind, right? The guy that they signed from Shakhtar Donetsk and then really quickly fizzled out. Um, and that's not the case here. He was very strong from the start to the end. He finished the season with a goal and assist against Hoffenheim, where he was brilliant. This is the first time I've seen him play live since last fall, and I thought he was absolutely incredible player. And yeah, like you, I was a little baffled that it was Harry Kane. I think actually, you know what? I actually think Harry Kane himself would be baffled, to be quite honest with this. Because like he sees Michael Olise. He didn't speak in a mixed zone in this particular game, but he's spoken in the past about Michael Olise and the work that he puts in. I think he himself was probably a little bit baffled by the selection as well. And yeah, look, I don't think we've seen a player come to the league like Olise has this year and been this outstanding right away for a long time.
Yeah, I completely agree. A few mentions just before we kind of do jump back into the Odyssey stuff, but as well as what our subscribers voted for, mentioned the
Mm,
likes of Girassi, Marmoush, but I thought Klein Dietz had a great season. Hugo
hmm
Ekitike, great season.
Yeah.
Mohamed Amoura, great season. Vincenzo Grifo and Vitzo Doan at Freiburg, also great seasons. Even Florian Wirtz, I thought, had a really solid season, despite being in a team that kind
Mm,
of fell apart 3 quarters of the way through. But yeah, in terms of like actual raw stats and influence over his team, I think Michael Olise was outstanding. I think I'm right in saying he either scored or assisted a third of Bayern's goals this season. Even though he's second in the league table behind Harry Kane for goals and assists, if you take Harry Kane's penalties
mm,
out of the equation, Olise actually has 3 or 4 more than him. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I know it's definitely 3 or 4, which is just incredible to think that he's got more goal contributions from open play than Bayern Munich's €100 million striker. And I think that just goes to show how important he has been to Bayern this season. I think it's really interesting that Musiala isn't part of this conversation. I think he's probably going to go away this summer and realise that he maybe needs to have a serious break. I think he has to recharge his batteries and really kind of kick on next season because it felt like he kind of plateaued much this season.
mm.
And I only mention that within the context of Olise because it really felt like Olise stepped up and took on that responsibility that Musiala wasn't really capable of offering this season. As that kind of game changer, as that kind of match winner, we saw it time and time again. He stood out in big games as well. I think he's got like 4 or 5 goals and assists against RB Leipzig this season. He got an assist against Dortmund. I think he's got like 8 or 7 goals and assists in the Champions League this year. Um, so much so that, as we approach the kind of end of the season, you could see that teams were thinking, right, if we want to stop Bayern, we have to stop Michael Olise. He's the
Mm.
source of goals and assists in this Bayern team on that right hand side. Um, and that's largely due to the fact that, Musiala looked a little jaded this season, the whole kind
Yeah.
of fiasco of that left wing with, Gnabry and Sané and Kingsley Coman. Um, in a Bayern team that I don't think is a classic or a great Bayern team by any stretch of the imagination, I think Bayern were able to paper over a lot of cracks because they had Olise just really playing out of his skin every single
Mm.
week. And the fact that he's only
Yeah.
just turned 23 in December is hugely encouraging. Guy's got incredible amount of potential, and as one of our subscribers put it, he's probably the best Bayern winger that we've seen since Frank Ribery and Arjen Robben, and that's probably as high a praise you can afford a Bayern Munich player, Manu.
Yeah, you can. I mean, I want to say this about Jamal Musiala. He only played 25 games, missed the last 9 of the season, and even then, he still scored 12 goals and 4 assists and ranks 21st among top scorers in the Bundesliga. Top scorers, I mean, goals and assists combined. So, even in a season that was kind of mediocre by his standards and was filled by injuries, his productivity was still really strong. And they look at Veth, quick math in my head here, 10 goals and 13 assists in 31 games. Musiala would probably been around that same number without the injury, maybe a
Yeah,
little bit
no,
higher,
absolutely. I mean, I
right?
don't think either of them are at their best. Obviously, Wirtz missed a number of
Yeah.
games as well. He only
The
finished with
the Euros, I think, and Wirtz went into the Euros injured and came out of the Euros not 100% fit, and same with Jamal Musiala. And like they're both really young. They were going to feel the amount of games that they have been playing eventually. I'm at the UEFA Nations League game next week, Germany against Portugal, and there's no Musiala, even though he's fit now, right? And that is needed. I couldn't agree with a decision more than that.
Hold on, Manu. Is that a Bayern player dropping out of the national team because he's a little tired?
I think
Let me just see if I can figure out how to comprehend
I
that.
actually wonder if Wirtz is gonna play either, to be honest with
No,
you.
he probably
Uh,
won't. But
Yeah,
it's
it's
interesting.
not.
Bayern, but yeah. Anyway,
The politics of
If I had
German
a penny
football.
for every time a Bayern player pulled out of the national team over a slight injury, although I would say Musiala definitely deserves it. I'm just a quick joke
I think
about.
it's needed. I think that he
Yeah,
wouldn't be any
yeah.
help, in at the moment because he desperately needs the rest. So yeah, I mean, that is probably to his defense. And I think, looking at the players that were really outstanding to me, we would probably be talking about Omar Marmoush if he was still here. The
Definitely.
way he played, and even though he left halfway through the season, he finishes the he finishes the Bundesliga with 25 scorer points, 15 goals, 10 assists, which ranks him fifth overall.
Joint third, actually. Joint third with Kleindienst and
Yeah,
Ganassi.
that's remarkable. That is
Yeah, it's
absolutely
huge.
unbelievable. So I mean, we'll probably be having a pretty lengthy discussion whether it should be Olise or Marmoush if Marmoush hadn't left.
I mean, I think you could still make a case for Marmoush, even though he left in January.
Yeah.
We were chatting away to our some of our colleagues today because we obviously did these votes on the website this week, talking about all the leagues in Europe and stuff like that. And everyone got to vote for who they wanted as their kind of player of the campaign. And we were laughing about how Mika Biereth won the Austrian Bundesliga Player of the Year, even though he moved to Monaco in January. And it's funny to laugh at, but as you said, Marmoush still finished the season. Only two players managed to outscore him in the second half of the
Yeah.
season. And if we're talking about Frankfurt as one of the kind of best teams in the league this year, Marmoush still deserves probably more credit than anyone else in that Frankfurt team. Although I said Hugo Katiki's done great, and I think he did a really good job to kind of step in and help out when Marmoush moved on. You probably could still make a solid case for Marmoush to be player of the
Well,
season.
also he went to Man City and his productivity didn't really decline, right? He went to a
Yeah,
completely new
yeah.
environment, to a club that was struggling at the time, and he still scored 7 goals and 2 assists in the Premier League, with less minutes played. And so his productivity didn't decline. He was obviously ready for a top European club, right? So
Yeah, no, absolutely. But Michael Olise wins this award this year, and it'll be
yeah,
interesting to see if he can do it next year as well.
yeah. I mean, this is always the difficult, right? You have to confirm your first season. I think one thing, and this is another quote from Ebal. He said, in a season in which Jamal Musiala dropped out with an injury and Harry Kane wasn't always at his best, Michael Olise really stepped up and filled the void of productivity when other players weren't able to produce. And again, that's just so true. And the final thing that I might want to say about this too is the Michael Olise transfer is now Bayern's benchmark on which they will judge Max Eberl and Christoph Freund.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all we've been talking about as we kind of go into
Yeah,
this summer, isn't it? They have to
yeah.
find another Michael Olise, which is which I'm not sure
Or
Mike
two.
R2. Yeah, I doubt Eberl and Co appreciate that, but yeah, you're absolutely right. He has set the standard for an outstanding signing at Bayern, and
Yeah.
they're few and far between these days. So it's yeah, he's ticked all the boxes, 10 out of 10 across the board. So I think it's unanimous, and I definitely agree with our subscribers and YouTube members on that one.